Welcome. If you're just joining us, my name is Rosario. I'm an Assistant Director of Admission here at Puget Sound. We're thrilled to have you join. We're going to give folks just about a minute or so. Zoom takes a minute to let everybody in, and so we'll give folks just a minute. But sit back, relax, and we'll get started in just a second. Again, as you're just joining us, welcome. We're giving folks just a moment to join our Zoom call here, and so we'll get started here in just a moment. Thank you so much. One more time, I'll say, hello, everybody. My name is Rosario. I'm an Assistant Director of Admission here at Puget Sound. We're giving folks just a moment to get into our Zoom call. I'm still seeing folks coming on in, and so we'll give them just a sec to do that. And we'll go ahead and get started with some introductions. All right. We will let folks who are still joining continue to trickle on in, but let's go ahead and jump into it. Hello, everybody. My name is Rosario. I'm an Assistant Director of Admission here at University of Puget Sound, and I'm just super thrilled to have you join us on this evening. I want to thank you for taking some time out of your night tonight to join us here virtually at University of Puget Sound. I know in this day and age, hopping on Zoom calls is plentiful, and so we just appreciate your time tonight and being able to join us. Likewise, I appreciate the time of all of our panelists here today. We thank you for sharing a little bit of your insights tonight. Of course, with me are the main focus of our event tonight. Three of our panelists who are joining us tonight to answer your questions and give you a little bit of insight about Puget Sound and the School of Business and Leadership. With me are, of course, two members of our faculty and then one of our current students as well. Let's do a little round of introductions. To my left on my screen, at least, I see Professor Claire. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Ryan. I'll start by saying I'm Professor Claire, and I was actually Ryan's professor. So there you go. I am a professor in the School of Business and Leadership, and I'm the director of the school as well. I love all things entrepreneurial and teach classes related to entrepreneurship, as well as a strategy senior seminar, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later, and principles of management. So it's nice to have you with us.
Fantastic. Professor Ahn, how about yourself?
Okay, thank you. So hello, everyone. My name is Young Ahn. So I am an assistant professor. So at the School of Business and Leadership, I'm teaching marketing. So I'm teaching principal marketing, the marketing research and consumer behavior. So I love to learn about consumer behavior. And so another my research field is sustainable consumption. So nice to meet you. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And last but certainly not least, one of our current students is with us as well. Travis, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, thank you, Ryan. Hello, everyone. My name is Travis. I am a senior at the university. I am originally from San Francisco, California, and I go with he, him pronouns. In terms of my major, I am a business leadership program major, as well as a double major in economics. And then current classes I'm taking in the business program are valuation, and I just wrapped up Professor Ahn's marketing research class, which was fantastic as well. Outside the classroom, I'm also on our varsity swim team. I'm involved with Greek life, and I help run the campus visit program, which is the tours and things you see here. And if I'm not too busy on certain weeks, I am also part of the Puget Sound Investment Club as well. So if you have any questions from a student's perspective, let me know. I'd be happy to ask those or answer those, sorry.
And Travis, it might be obvious given your background, but where did you go to high school?
I went to high school in just south of San Francisco at Sequoia High School in Redwood City, California.
Awesome, very cool. Love to see our Bay Area representation. As we jump into, of course, our event here, I want to just quickly go over some additional housekeeping notes here. For all of you joining in with us today, we can't see you, we can't hear you, but you can see and hear us. So as you are joining us today, please feel free to sit back. If your cat walks in front of your screen, no big deal. You are simply kind of joining us in for this conversation. Of course, as our faculty and our students here are happy to take your questions, please refer to that. There's a Q&A function here at the bottom of Zoom. That's where we'll take all of your questions. And so as early as right now, I'd love for you to start throwing what questions you have about Puget Sound, the School of Business and Leadership, Travis's experience as a student, whatever those things that you might have. Start putting those in the Q&A and we'll systematically kind of go through those. With me, I actually have two of my colleagues, Mike Rodersman and Jasmine Estrada from my admission team. They're also answering some questions there in the Q&A as well. So if it's a great question, they might answer it. But if it's also a good question for the whole group, they will throw that to me and we'll kind of talk about it as a group. So if you have any questions, start throwing those in the Q&A. With that, let's jump into it. I have a couple of warm-up questions we'll get started with. I'd love to ask the group, business is not traditionally considered one of the liberal arts disciplines. And that being said, University of Puget Sound is an incredible liberal arts college, and we have a really wonderful program in the School of Business and Leadership. Can you talk to me a little bit about then what is business at Puget Sound, and how do we prepare students for their careers after their time with us at Puget Sound?
So I'm going to start to answer. So I know some believe that Professor Claire will answer further. So for the UPS business program, so we teach the basics for the business like finance, accounting, marketing, management, and law and ethics. So those are kind of commonalities with other business programs. But the unique the features of our program, so what the technical skills matters, but we more focus on critical thinking and the communication. So with lots of activities and hands-on activities, so we offer some courses with the kind of some interdisciplinary focus like sustainability business and the international business and supply chains. So for example, I'm teaching so I'm teaching sustainability marketing. So that's one the example. And also I do a lot of hands-on experience. For example, in my consumer behavior. So of course I teach kind of theories and concepts to understand consumer behavior, but also we do a lot of hands-on experience. We do the garbage logic activities. So we analyze our trash. Okay, so we analyze based on what consumers throw away, and then we understand the characteristics of this consumer to understand the predict the profile of consumers. So I see. So while we know the basic knowledge and the kind of rigorous foundation for the business, but plus, so we more focus on critical thinking and the communication.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll build a little bit on that. Professor Ahn gives some great examples. We have several of our faculty have joint appointments in other departments. Currently, one of our business faculty is the chair of the Latin American Studies program. Others have joint appointments in environmental studies, history, things like that. Even those of us who don't have joint appointments typically have pretty broad backgrounds with, I majored in botany and English as an undergraduate, and I am not unusual in this sort of bringing a lot to the table kind of approach. In terms of this emphasis that we have on critical thinking and communication, we encourage you to learn to ask the right questions, learn how to find answers, and learn how to think through those. Those are the kinds of skills that are going to really move you through your career. So you're not just looking at the first kind of job, being prepared for that. You're getting prepared for the job that's 5 years down the road. And now that I've been here, this is my 16th year at Puget Sound, it is so exciting to see where people who I had as students 5, 10, 15 years ago are now situated. A graduate from about 8 years ago is now the marketing manager for the Surface for Microsoft. So it's really fun to see this in action, because I'd heard about it, but it was really great to see that happening. Travis, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. So from a student's perspective, when I was an incoming first-year student, I had, even in high school, I wasn't really super interested in business. All I wanted to be was an airline pilot. But as I graduated high school, I realized that's not the career I wanted to be. But I came to Puget Sound and I knew I wanted to do something in business, but I had no idea like what facet of business I wanted to do. What's great about Puget Sound is that they expose you to all these different aspects. You don't have to stick with those aspects if you don't want to in later upper division classes. You get to kind of build your own major within the program itself. So for example, I really connected with finance and marketing classes, but I didn't really connect with accounting or supply chain logistical kind of things like that. So I kind of picked my classes in the business program to represent my interest in finance and marketing as well. So I kind of built my own program that was tailored to my interest. But if I also wanted to explore a different subject, I could also take a elective class and explore that area if I really wanted to. That's really the beauty of it. You can do that within your program, but you can also do it on the outside of your program as well. I took, because I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area and I was interested and I knew that I might be working in Silicon Valley, I took a computer science class just so I could learn kind of the basics about what programming is and how to work with people who do that for kind of their career, and also just to see what like their kind of workflow would be like, so that if I was working in technology fields, I could connect with those that group. And to me, that allowed me to kind of get exposed to that. And it also taught me that I am definitely not meant to be an engineer or a coder or do any of that comp sci stuff. I definitely am not good at it, but now I know that, and it was great to have that hands-on experience so I don't like take 10 different classes and find that out at the last minute that it wasn't for me. So that was great. Puget Sound really exposes you to multiple areas, and I really enjoy seeing all that kind of all the different areas that I could go into and explore the areas that really spark my interest.
Travis, that's super awesome. You talked a little bit about being able to do some of that exploration through some real hands-on experiences and really tailoring the program to meet your interests and your needs as a student, which I think, again, just highlights the uniqueness of our program. But it also, I think, raises another good question that I'd like to ask to the group. Puget Sound is actually known as an institution that really values that hands-on experience, as you were kind of talking about, Travis. Internships, research opportunities, studying abroad, for example, or even service-based or community-based learning projects. I'd love to hear a little bit about what that looks like in specifically the School of Business and Leadership. You know, Travis, have you had experiences with experiential learning? And then, of course, for our faculty, what kind of things have you seen with your students, and how is that unique amongst our program?
Sure, I'll start. So I was fortunate enough to study abroad and do an internship abroad this spring before the COVID-19 pandemic kind of derailed that. But luckily, I was able to complete my whole internship before I had to come back to the United States. So I can kind of speak on that. So I studied abroad and worked in London, England. And it was really insightful because the year before I took a management course, and the management course is great at teaching you like about cross-cultural management and how to work with diverse people. And the office that I worked with was a hospitality industry. They're basically a luxury Airbnb, but they had two headquarters, one in London and one in Paris, as well as offices in New York and Australia and Italy. So everyone coming into the London office had a really diverse background, and like customers and clients would come in from all over the world. It was really interesting to see that everything I read in the textbook was true, and I could practice what I learned in class and put that into the real world. Now, some days I probably would have easily messed up and made a fool of myself, but that's all part of the learning process. And without that, I think like without having that kind of experience at Puget Sound, I definitely wouldn't be as open and excited to kind of take that leap of faith forward. And then speaking from like an internship standpoint, a lot of the assignments you do at school and the work you do isn't necessarily busy work. It's all work that's replicative of what you would do in the real world. And that's something I really like. When I interned there, my manager said I was pretty fluent in like the processes and things. And I attribute that to having really good professors who challenged me with really good assignments and made me think critically, like Professor Ahn said. That's super nice to have, and it really challenges you to dig deeper and think about concepts and understand them. And then when it comes to the real world, you can tackle challenges because you know you've seen those in school and kind of worked through them, which is great at dealing with problems under pressure. And then as an intern, you obviously have a wide network of other support systems within the industry that you're looking at as well, obviously. And then I think, do any of you, Professor Claire, Professor Ahn, you can speak on kind of other experiences like research. I haven't done much research, but you guys certainly are a little more in tune with that as well.
Okay, so I'm gonna just talk about my the kind of research activity in my course. So for example, so in my marketing research, the students and that Travis is taking. So the students, they are conducting the whole research process. So they choose the topic, they design the study. So they start with a kind of marketing question. They are wondering, the question they want to find the answers. So they designed the study and they collected the real data from the real world, and then they analyzed the data, and then they provided the findings and to make marketing the implication. So what I empathize in this research process is they can apply the skills, kind of statistical skills and research method that they run, but plus I emphasize students. So when you interpret the findings, what kind of marketing strategy, what kind of implication are you going to make? So it's not just statistical class. So after you analyze data, so what is the meaningful information so to make the marketing solutions? That's the one piece of my the experiential hands-on activity in terms of research. Thank you. So
All right. So I wanted to, I could just spend the rest of the next hour, 2-3 hours talking about experiential learning. I don't think I see questions appearing in Q&A, so I won't do that, I promise. But I think experiential learning is just amazing for the outcomes we see and how engaged students get. So my favorite experiential learning is my senior research seminar, although I do similar kinds of activities in other classes. And in that, the students spend the entire semester working with real businesses, nonprofits, and governments on strategy. So we've just wrapped up a senior research seminar in strategy, and it was phenomenal. I had, so 3 of my clients, and they are real clients, they really want the information. In there, 3 of them are alumni, and 2 were community members who, one was from a city government and one was from a private company. It's a very entrepreneurial firm, and he wanted to look at diversification. And the team went through an amazing amount of ideation and learning about the company, and ended up presenting him with 2 different concepts that he could take, and I think he's probably going to take both. Students learn tools, kind of as Travis said, you learn things in the classroom, then you get to apply them, and it's super exciting. We debriefed yesterday, which was our last day of class, and one of the students said, you know, Professor Claire gave me some feedback that maybe I should think about including this kind of a thing, and I didn't really think much of her idea, but I thought, well, I guess I'll go ahead and do it. And then in the final presentation, the client says, that's amazing. I need to learn more about this. This is great. And so it's really fun to see how you can apply these different concepts and to see that people really do value what it is you're learning. It's pretty exciting.
I appreciate that, because I think, you know, a lot of students, as they're sitting here, especially, you know, learning in front of their computer all year, are trying to envision like, what is this education going to look like at Puget Sound? And I think highlighting these experiences outside of the class are really helpful. So I appreciate that. I want to turn to a couple questions that are coming in from the group too. One of the first that I saw come in was actually for you, Travis, but I'd love to also hear if there's any other input on this. What's a typical day look like for a student in the School of Business and Leadership? In addition to that, what are the sizes of classes, and what kind of courses are you taking?
Awesome. Yeah, so I can totally answer that. So I will say that a typical day, generally, I have around 2 or 3 classes. Sometimes 1 class, sometimes 3 classes, but generally on average around 2 or 3 is kind of the sweet spot that I go for. The classes range. So as a first year student, the classes are larger than most other classes at our school. So they'll have around 40-ish students, I want to say. I've never seen a class with more than 45. And that was a science, biology 101 kind of class. In our marketing class I'm taking right now at Professor Ahn, I think there's around 22 students or so. And then the smallest class I've had is also this semester. It's valuation, where we value companies, and there's a whopping 7 students in the class. So you really, and I don't feel the gap. Like I don't feel the classes are like super big compared to the 7 and the 22 person class. I feel like everyone can have talking time if they need it. They can all participate, which is great. The 7-person class is very intimate, and the 22-person class feels great because like a lot of different ideas are brought up. And then as for a typical day, so I'm on the swim team, so I'm going to be up early. I'm going to be in the gym. But generally after swim in the mid morning, I'll start working on homework. I am a morning person, so I get some homework done in the morning. And it's great. Normally what I do is I kind of devote my mornings to finance. So our giant valuation project this year is to value Alaska Airlines. And basically, it's a lot of looking at their balance sheets and their financials and making sure they're doing good business practices, but also examining like their future strategy. And if you have been watching the news, obviously there's a pandemic and it's really wreaking havoc on the airline industry. So it's great to kind of watch the market trends go on with the airline, kind of see where they're going and end up making a decision on whether to buy the stock or sell the stock. So we've been doing that all year, but generally in the mornings I would work on that. And then I'd go to class. I would have marketing in the morning with Professor Ahn. I would do that for about an hour. And like she said, we'd work on either group projects or we'd learn about how to kind of analyze data, which I definitely had no idea how to do beforehand, but it is super great to know how to do that afterwards. And then in the afternoon, I would go to my finance courses. We discuss what we learned about Alaska that day, look at some other examples of other case studies from companies. And then in the afternoon, I would generally work on other homework, but I would also make time. This is really important for college students, is to make time for your friends and definitely hang out with people, socialize, go to a club, go grab a dinner if you can, if there's no pandemic, obviously, and go spend time with someone. Do something that's not on your computer, not on a screen, not in school. Just do something, hang out with someone, because that really kind of recharges you. That way, when the evening comes and you want to get some more homework done, you feel refreshed, you feel relaxed, and you can get some homework done before like hanging out in the evening, playing some video games or reading or doing some other non-school related activity. So I find it's really good to have a balance between like schoolwork and kind of career opportunities, as well as hanging out and having a social life, going to clubs and different things. That's really important to me. As a student athlete, it's really important that you're balancing everything, but it's definitely very doable, and it helps. And I like being busy. It helps keep me on my toes as well. Hopefully, that's a long answer, but hopefully I answered the question.
I appreciate that, Travis. For Professor Claire and Professor Ahn, does that sound pretty representative of a lot of the students you work with, or any other insights?
So just a couple things. One is that while your first year classes may be bigger in the business school, we limit all of our classes to 25 for your what we call foundations courses, those first 5 in all the disciplines, and to 20 in your elective courses. It's just that Professor Ahn is a real softie, so she let in a couple extra people. So we are flexible. I would say the one piece that Travis didn't mention, which I know he does, is that lots of our students have a job on campus or interning somewhere, something like that. And that just wasn't in that particular day, but just to kind of point that out and give a little attention to it. But other than that, sounds pretty accurate.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Another good question coming from the group. I think a couple of students heard you, Travis, talk a little bit about the business leadership program in particular. Could we talk just a little bit about like why be part of the BLP, as we call it, on campus, and what are some of the things that students might experience in that program particularly?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the BLP, our Business Leadership Program, is an honors program within the business department. So it's technically, it has its own major, but you have access to the same resources, the same classes, the same professors. It's really just an honors program for driven students, and you're held to kind of a higher standard, similar to like a generally honors program, and the classes are similar in format to honors classes, AP, IB, Running Start, things that you would have had in high school as well. Some things that the BLP has that set it apart from other our main business program is we have seminars that are held weekly, and these are seminars on diverse topics. Sometimes we talk about diversity and leadership. Other times we have alumni come in and share stories about how they got started in their careers. Other times we've had executives from companies come down and share their insights. So a really wide range of activities. We also have a mentor program, both student to student, so upperclassmen mentoring students. I'm a part of that. And then we also have alumni mentors as well. My alumni mentor, she works she works for Boeing. And she worked, it was really interesting because I'm also a big aviation nut. I love aviation. I do things with airplanes all the time. And she works on the production team for the 737 Maxes, which, as you know, just got recertified. So she's very happy with that. But it's great to talk to her about how she was going through challenges and kind of working on things like that as well. And then the other kind of important thing is the BLP takes classes as a group. So every semester you have one cohort class, as we call it. So it's great to have a class with your BLP peers. You can kind of grow as a group throughout your Puget Sound journey. And you also kind of live in the same residence hall as well your first year as a student as well. So you really form a tight-knit community, and it's a great built-in study group, and you get really close with your peers. That program, I think, has around 25 students total. So it's a very intimate group. Your professors get to know you very well, and you get to know your classmates very well. And a lot of my great friends are in the program, and I probably wouldn't have met them otherwise.
And I wanted to, so thank you, Travis. That was great. Just to kind of note that you do have to apply to the business leadership program from high school. So it's not something where you can say, oh, well, I think I'll join as a junior, partly because of that, well, mainly because of that cohort model. I will say, though, that our other majors, business administration and international business, you have the same great professors. And honestly, because I teach a lot of seniors, we get to the end and there are phenomenal students in all our majors. And the business leadership program does have a minimum GPA that is not the same as for the rest of the business school. So you might have some weaker students in some of the other business majors, but really there are fantastic students, fantastic classes. And so if you apply to the business leadership program and get in, fantastic. If you say cohorts aren't for me, that's fine. And if you apply and don't get in, I want to encourage you to still keep Puget Sound on your list, because we offer fantastic experience to all of the students. So I just want to make that plug.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Thank you, Travis, for sharing a little bit about that program too. I know we're kind of talking about it and don't want to just gloss over that. I had another good question come in. Maybe this one is a great question for our faculty members here, but Molly asked a little bit about the skills that are best represented by students pursuing a major in the School of Business. Are students expected, or do they tend to be strong in certain subject areas like English and math? Like, what kind of areas do business students need to be kind of prepared in? All of the above, none of the above? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm gonna start. So I would say just be ready to ask question and be ready to explore. Okay, so that's the most important skills. So math skills and in writing skills, oh yes, those are important skills. So that's the kind of skills you're going to develop during the college years. But the most important things, especially in the business program, so as I said, the critical thinking. So that means that just keep asking. So and then just the mindset to explore the things. That I think that's the most important thing.
Great. I love that answer. And I agree 100%. Being curious is the complete. So I would say that at Puget Sound, we are going to focus a lot more on your writing than other business programs are. And so sometimes people think, well, that means I have to be a great writer to succeed. And I just want to say that's not really true. It's helpful, sure. It's always helpful to be a great writer. I had a student about 8 years ago who was a terrible writer, like really, really, really bad. And I had him as a sophomore, and he got terrible grades on his papers. And so after the first one, I wrote in his comments, I said, you know, have you gone to the Center for Writing and Learning and kind of gotten some help there? And if not, you know, you should. And I'm happy to talk to you. So he came by my office and he says, I've been, and I don't know, I'm just not getting it. And so I said, okay, look, let's deal with one thing at a time. And so he would come by my office every 3 weeks or so, and we'd do one thing that he could work on to make his writing better. So we did this for the rest of his college career. Every few weeks, he'd stop on my office, we'd work on one thing. And at the end of college, I said, you know, I know the writing's been hard for you, John, and I'm just kind of curious. Do you wish you had gone somewhere else? And he said, no. Can you imagine what a terrible writer I would be had I gone somewhere else? I thought, yeah. And now he just finished his MBA this year at Northwestern. So he's obviously doing okay. And he gave a total thumbs up to, if you're not a great writer, it's okay. This is a great place to get better.
That's an awesome story. And I think those are the kinds of stories that really help our prospective students kind of just like understand what this place can be. And two, I think calm some nerves. I think the college search is always a little bit nerve-wracking. And I think students definitely want to know, like, what is this going to be like? Can I handle this? And I always try to iterate to students, like, this place is, I mean, go see your professors, go to the CWLT. There's so many resources out there. So I appreciate that that story. Another good question coming in from the group here. This question kind of comes back to that experiential learning piece. In particular, the student asked about research. Are there possibilities as early as freshman or sophomore year? But I think I'll even expand that question to, you know, what does just research look like in the School of Business and Leadership? I know we probably have an idea of what that maybe looks like over in the biology department, but I'd love to hear a little bit about research in business.
So I will say that research in business, we talk about business as if it's one discipline, and we have such variety in terms of senior research seminars, which is where you must do a very large independent research project. My senior seminar in strategy looks completely different than Professor Rich's senior seminar in sports law, and completely different from Professor Livingston's senior seminar in investments and Professor Matthews' senior seminar in leadership. They're all completely different. And that reflects the fact that these disciplines are different and that we do different kinds of research. So Professor Johnson is a law professor who studies how the environment interacts with law in terms of the natural environment. She focuses specifically on animal rights law. And she always has this fascinating stream of research going that's just wide ranging and super interesting, but it's law, so I don't really understand it that well. But if you're interested in those kinds of issues, then she's someone you would want to get to know. And she might be interested. Sometimes faculty want to have students to do research with, and we don't have graduate students. And so we need to do our research with undergraduates if we want to get our research done. We actually have an endowed chair position in the School of Business and Leadership. And our big requirement to get that, it's a 2-year rotating position. People apply, the faculty apply for it. And the requirement of it is that there is a piece of the work you're going to do that is involving students in research. And so it might, one of our recent recipients of this chair worked with students on an international business project in South America, and they were collecting data together and analyzing it and that kind of thing. So there are definitely opportunities. And if you are excited about doing some research, we want to hear from you.
And that's a great point. You said we want to hear from you. When should they? How should they tell you that? As a student who's maybe coming into their first year and they're like, I want to tell my professor I want to do research, but I don't want to sound like I'm asking for too much.
I'm happy to, take the approach and just knock my door, of course, during this time. So I'm not in the office, but so just email me. So that's it. I say that I'm interested in this topic. So I have several students who share their interest in marketing field and the consumer behavior. So for this semester, for example, we set up the Zoom meeting. So we start having conversations, and he said, I'm interested in this kind of consumer behavior, especially during this pandemic time. So we had a kind of conversation so we can explore kind of the potential to develop the research question. And another example is that the last semester, so and Professor Claire and I just the advise one student and her research, independent research, the project as a part of a senior project, and she studied the relationship between the social connection, closeness of social connections, the number of friends, how frequently she just hang out with friends, and the relationship with the consumption patterns. So her hypothesis was kind of those who have a lack of social connection will spend more time for kind of the hedonic product, like a luxury product, rather than functional or essential products. So it was so interesting. She just designed the study, and then she just collected data, and then just had a just great senior project. So that is the one example I did. Thank you.
And I will just add that if you haven't taken any classes with any of us, you don't know what you're interested in, you can contact me. Part of my job as director is to connect people, and I like connecting people. So just again, like Professor Ahn said, knock on my door, knock on my virtual door, we'll have a conversation and I'll explore what you're interested in, try and make the connection happen. It could be your first year, it'd be great.
Excellent. Thanks so much. I actually have another follow-up question that maybe a little bit on a similar note. Coming back to internships, one student asked, they're interested in internships in college. How can they get connected to those opportunities, either through campus, through professors? Like, how do we support students in finding those opportunities? I know, Travis, you said you had an internship. I'd love to hear how you found that. Professor Claire, I know you have lots of connections around the Seattle-Tacoma area. I mean, how do students who want internships find those opportunities?
Yeah. So one of them, so I had two internships before. One of them was through the study abroad program that I selected. So that one was more like geared towards, like we had an advisor in the study abroad program, which was separate from Puget Sound, that helped me find the placement. So that was probably easier to get because I registered for that program, and they kind of worked with me to find a program that was like similar to my interests and what I wanted to do. But the other internship I got was through connections that I had made over the course of my college career, and that internship was at VMware, which is a tech company down in California, in Silicon Valley. And that one was just from networking. We learned in the business leadership program the value of networking and forging connections. And upon hearing that kind of seminar in the beginning of fall semester of my first year, I ended up starting like really going in on LinkedIn. I had a lot of like family friends who worked in different roles, and I would do informational interviews with them, learn more about what they did. And then, so once I got sent home from England, I couldn't do remote work for the company anymore. That was in England. So I really started to ask around if I could like get some work experience in other places. Up before that point, I was only working at a flight school. So I really wanted to expand kind of my network from the small airport. And I ended up meeting someone who did work at VMware, and they said they wanted to see if I'd be a good fit for a sourcing role, which is kind of a hybrid finance and contracts and negotiation. Sourcing is a very kind of a lot of different aspects mixed together. And I interviewed and did an informational interview with them, and they said they'd love to have me do some stuff over the summer. So I did that. And it was great to tap in, kind of like to learn the value of networking. And I think I attribute that to my professors, as well as for leading talks on how to network. Before I came to Puget Sound, I was definitely not very like outgoing in that sense. So it's great to like learn how to make connections and how to talk with people about professional matters and things like that. And now it's like a lot of my friends have also found internships the same way, which is great. And you definitely learn the importance, whether you're the BLP or not, of how to network, how to connect with people, and how to kind of tell your story in 30 seconds, the elevator pitch, as they call it.
And Travis, did I catch, how did you find your internship that was in London?
So that was through the study abroad program. Basically, I just said I was interested in finance and marketing, and I wanted to work they gave me 3 options, or I could give 3 options for industries. I said the travel industry, like kind of the travel startup industry. I said finance would be okay. And then I said the airline industry, and they said we have something in the hospitality. I said it's a startup, and it's like that luxury Airbnb type place. And I called, did an interview, and the interviewer said like, yeah, I think you'd be a good fit. And I do remember on like halfway through the role, he said, he remarked and said, your school did a really, really good job of preparing you. He's like, a lot of the interns we've had, it's a lot of hand holding and kind of guidance. And he's like, I'm glad that like where you came from, you had a lot of independence and you take initiative. And that's what he said. Employers really like to see that. And I felt Puget Sound is really big in letting students take initiative on things they're really interested in.
So Travis, kudos for networking and getting that going. I have this theory that everyone loves to do informational interviews, and Puget Sound alumni are so great. You can just contact any of them and say, could I sit down with you for 20 minutes and ask you how you got there? If you did that every month from the very start of your college career, when you graduated, you would have a network of 50 people who are out there helping you find a job, and it would be incredible. So you definitely, networking and getting to know people is a great way to find an internship. I want to also say that we do have a career and employment services department that is fantastic about getting students ready for the internships and helping them find them. I'm also a believer that you can create an internship. And so I work a lot with students who say, well, I'm interested in something very specific, or they want to work in a specific kind of community, and trying to connect them, whether that's with alumni or with our local community. So last spring, Professor Ahn and I, she doesn't even know this story, we shared a student who was getting close to graduation, and he didn't have any what I'll call meaningful work experience. He had worked landscaping throughout college. That wasn't something he wanted to do as a career, and he really needed to get a little more stretching done and a little more experience under his belt before he graduated. And so I talked to him about kind of his general interests and where he wanted to be. He was from California. He was Hispanic in ethnic identity and really identified strongly with that. So I connected him with a professional friend of mine in the community who is I think he's just at the epicenter of the professional Hispanic community here. And so they were able to work something out and get that going. And that was a super great kind of result to have. I do make a lot of introductions to students on LinkedIn to alumni, where I pave the way to help them connect. And I continue that after they graduate. I got an email the other day, hey, I remember Megan, and she has this great business now, and I'm starting one, and I was hoping to reach her, but I don't know how to get a hold of her. So I go, oh, hey, Megan, there's Jill, talk. And they did, and they had a great time. So we really try to work with you to get you the experiences you want.
I love that. That's such a great example, I think, of the things I talk about in mission all the time, which is our professors get to know us, and the students really get to reap the benefits of having that close relationship with professors. And so I appreciate you sharing that. Another great question coming in from the chat here. I actually really appreciated this question. It was about the leadership component of the School of Business and Leadership. They wanted to know a little bit about how does that sounds a little bit different. What kind of classes or what kind of things are talked about in classes that make that so distinctive that we put that in the title of our program. I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure, I'll start, Ryan. So I think a lot of Puget Sound students have opportunities for leadership in a lot of different areas that are outside of the classroom as well. So for example, in my fraternity, I am an officer in a position there. There's always like areas and clubs where you can easily run to be a leader and take on an executive role. So that's always there. And then certain classes, for example, we have one seminar course, actually not seminar course, but a upper division course called Paradigms of Leadership. And that course really talks about what goes into a leader. I don't necessarily think it like teaches you like, it doesn't give you like a step-by-step guide to be a leader, which I really prefer, because I think leadership is learned in a lot of different ways and it comes to people in different aspects. But it really dives deep into different concepts like what makes a good leader great versus just a regular good leader, and then how to lead in a crisis. So the research paper that I'm doing for that course is I'm kind of tying in a lot of different concepts that are kind of related to leadership in a crisis and how to decide between a group versus making a decision individually. And I'm looking through that with the lens. I don't know if you guys remember it, but there is that cruise ship in Italy, the Costa Concordia, that sunk after it hit the reef, and the captain like threw his hands up in the air and then like ran off and like didn't take responsibility for anything. And I'm looking at that kind of lens and looking at these concepts and seeing how, like, as I go through my career, like, is it better to make decisions as a group? Is it better for me to like make decisions on my own? Like, in a crisis, how would I handle myself? Because I don't think at my age I haven't really experienced that, but I'd love to be prepared when it does. And Professor Weiss is really helping me look through, not go into the weeds on my paper, but also gave me examples of like other things I can look at. She suggested looking at military leadership, because I know there's a lot of cases where the military does something wrong and someone has to stand up. The one person has to stand up and do something right. So there's plenty of opportunities to learn about leadership, one in that course, but you can definitely also dive deep and go into leadership roles at the university as well. A lot of our student clubs in the business program always elect officers once or twice a year. And I think that's a great way to take on a leadership role and kind of share your knowledge with younger members of our student body as well.
Go ahead, Professor Claire.
And I guess I'll just say that Paradigms of Leadership is an amazing class. And we try to weave leadership into not only our course content, but also the opportunities we bring forth to you. So the Puget Sound is now the Washington State representative to the National Millennial and Gen Z community, which is an organization that connects people in Millennial and Gen Z generations to leaders in the corporate world. And so we have 4 students, 3 of whom this year are from the business school, who represent us, and they have opportunities to lead discussions with vice presidents at major corporations and things like that. And so we try to find those opportunities for you to be able to take a leadership role.
That's awesome. I appreciate both of those stories. They're just, again, such great highlights of how our program, I think, is a little more unique and offers not just some of the tangible skills, but some of those real people skills that's important too. You know, I'm being, again, mindful of our time here as we're looking to probably wrap up here in a couple of moments. I'd love to ask a question that is maybe a little bit away from just business, but I'd love to get your opinion from each of you. What can students who are listening in right now and getting ready for college, noting that they've been doing a lot of their senior year and perhaps online, what can they do to best prepare for their time, whether it be at college, Puget Sound, School of Business, or otherwise? Next year is going to be a big year. What do they need to start thinking about?
Okay, if you guys aren't going to jump in first, I will. I think especially this year is a particularly good year to get this under your belt, but I think, or to start to get it under your belt, but I think it's true of all years. I really encourage you to start building the personal habits that are going to allow you to succeed. So when Travis was talking about his typical day, I'm going to call out Travis's building personal habits that are going to work. He makes time for exercise every day. And you don't need to be a varsity athlete. I do not put myself in the athlete category, but be active. Go outside, it's beautiful here. And go outside, go for a walk, whatever it is that you do something physical every day. Eat well, that's important. Figure out how you eat well, right? And figure out when you're productive. Travis said he's more productive in the morning. So start getting into that routine. And now that you're on online school, you actually have a little bit more flexibility, and your schedule probably resembles a college student more than it would have last year. So you're going to get some practice here in being more independent. And the number one thing in that personal habits that I will tell you, and if you take any of my classes, you will hear it again and again, build good sleep habits. We are, as a society, sleep deprived. And there is clear research that says your productivity, your capability, everything goes down when you don't get enough sleep. So learn to start building those patterns now. And the more you can do that, the more it'll pay off once you get to college.
So I'm gonna build on the professor's their nice comments. And so what I do like to say that, so I already mentioned a little bit, so just I want to say that please be curious. Okay, so be curious about what you already know, okay, and also what you don't know. So in the college, at UPS, so we'll provide a rigorous foundation to guide you to find the answers. And another thing is that please have perseverance. Okay, so we are in the very difficult times. We are living in the changing world. So we are facing a lot of challenges and difficulties, but just keep doing. So in spite of the difficulties and the challenges, and this would help you to achieve your goal in the college and after the college.
Professor Ahn stole mine. I was going to say, keep always having like a learning mentality, and be curious was definitely right on that. One thing that I'll add is one thing that I learned in high school. One of my English teachers told me this, and it kind of stuck with me throughout the rest of college. And I think it's really a good idea to like have this idea in the back of your mind, is the idea of get comfortable being uncomfortable. You're going to be challenged a lot in college, and that's totally okay and totally normal. But where the learning happens is when you challenge yourself to step back and look at things from a new perspective, or try something that you've never done before. And if you can kind of get comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable now, it makes that jump to a whole new environment so much easier. For me, coming from high school, I had the same friends since kindergarten. I had the same kind of interest since kindergarten. So when I came to school, it was definitely a leap of faith to try something new and do something new. And I think that if you go in with that goal and you're comfortable doing that, it makes college way more fun, makes college way more eye-opening and enlightening. And then take challenges, do kind of the unexpected. I kind of wear the same thing every single day, but in Professor Ahn's class, I'm doing research on the luxury fashion industry, which is something that I have zero experience with. One of my best friends in the group that I'm working with, she chose that topic. She continued to do it. And I was like, you know what? I've never learned about that. But if I was in a marketing role at a company or for a consulting company, maybe I would have to go and do work for a company that I've never even heard of or have any insight into. And I was like, it's a great way for me to learn and do some research into an industry that I've never heard of. And she was happy because she likes that industry and wanted to learn more about it. And I learned something completely new. So getting comfortable being uncomfortable has stuck with me since senior year of high school. And it's kind of my mantra. I like to challenge myself, do something new, always keep learning. That's kind of my tips for success. And then, as Professor Claire said, it's all about setting good habits. And I always recommend setting calendars and reminders, and definitely exercise. I have housemates when I'm up at school. They would do yoga in that backyard. We would do cooks. I learned how to cook, and I would challenge myself in like making a restaurant quality meal for my housemates. Be fun when I messed up, but it was also great learning experience as well. So always set good habits. I think that'll serve you very well for the rest of your college career, wherever you guys go.
I love that, Travis. I appreciate that answer so much. And thank you all for those tips for our students. I think what I'm hearing is that with the time that students have right now in high school, that there's a great opportunity to build some habits and a mindset that will really prepare them as they enter this big transition in a time that is transitionary, if that makes sense. And so I appreciate those answers so much. And two, I think we've had such a great panel discussion today about not only who we are as an institution at Puget Sound, but particularly in the School of Business and Leadership, and the different ways that faculty really closely connect with those with students in their classes and outside of class, in addition to the wonderful experiences of research, studying abroad, and all the different ways that I think we really help our students create a really well-rounded portfolio, if you will, of classes and experiences as they go on to those next steps as well. And so I appreciate all the input today on just what exactly a day in the life at in the School of Business would look like, because I think students are really trying to get an idea of who we are. And so I want to one more time just thank each of you, Professor Claire, Professor Ahn, Travis, for your time today. And I want to thank again our students for joining us and spending a little time on Zoom. I know, again, we have so many Zoom calls nowadays, so I appreciate you taking some time out of all of your days. With that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. This has been such a great panel. I appreciate you all so much. I see Professor Claire just put her contact information in the chat. I'm likewise going to throw my email. If you have any admission questions, of course, you can always contact us, contact me, or our general admission account at admission@pugetsound.edu. We are always so happy to hop on a Zoom call, phone call, email you back, whatever you need to get any of your questions answered. Thank you all again so much for your time today, and have a great rest of your evening, everybody.